The verse that affects me in that song every single time is, "And I am loved by you." I'm going to read you a couple stats in just a second. First off, I want to introduce today's subject with this. My children, all three of them, work with children. All three. My son works with high school children. And I hope those young people wouldn't hear me call them children, but we're going to keep it in that context for this message. My son works with high school children. My daughters both work with, my eldest daughter works with little children in an elementary school. And my second daughter, Aubrey, works with children through foster care. A little bit about Aubrey is she graduated college as a therapist. And more specifically, she graduated college as an art therapist, doing multiple interns prior to her graduation. She worked with elderly, she worked with youth, children through different settings, and worked with in-betweens. So she really saw the full gamut of age spread. And the first job coming out of college, you don't have the options that you will have once you start to build a resume. And so her first job was a job with foster care. And so she stepped into this role. I don't think she saw this one coming as far as which job she was going to take. And working in foster care is rewarding. It's difficult. It's painful. It's filled with disappointment. It's filled with personal aches. I hope she wouldn't say this, but maybe she would. It's filled with what may be perceived as failures along the way. But most importantly, it is rewarding. I don't know what her mindset was when she took this job. I don't know if she saw it in a short-term fill-in just to get some experience in her field. But the irony of that is she's had little opportunity to use her art therapy at the level in which she thought she would be using art therapy, and been most certainly a therapist throughout. Not sure why, not sure when, not sure who. None of those questions are definitive, and I'm not positive to the reasoning. Other than we give this to God and we let him make those decisions. So I think it's 8 years later. My daughter Aubrey still works with the same company in foster care. And along the way, I know her mother and I have wondered if she would continue in the field because of the exhaustion factor. And I think in her world, they often call it the burnout. But she presses on, and it's sorry for being a proud parent. It's extraordinary to witness. But the toll that she pays is real, and the exhaustion factor is real. I want to read to you, generally speaking, maybe why. There are more than, and I'm going to be looking down because I'm reading off of my sheet of just facts that I gathered. More than 450,000 children in America are in foster care. More than 750,000 spent time in foster care last year. What that means is there's transition. There's children who are maybe are found in a situation, placed in foster care, very quickly afterwards are taken out. But more than 750,000 worked through foster care last year. More than 150 million orphans worldwide. 75 million of those orphans in Asia alone. Averages. Children remain in state care, foster care, for over 1.5 years of their lives. 5% of all children in foster care languish within the care for more than 5 years, meaning not finding a place, not finding a home, not finding anyone to care for them. Average age of a child in foster care is 6.5 years old. I think most of us not celebrate, but hope that most children in foster care are babies, because we know, and I hope no one will be offended by my words, because we know that children and babies and infants are the desirables. When a family sees a baby and has an opportunity to adopt, the babies are those who probably have the best opportunity to be adopted. Little fact here, foster children are underinvested in, meaning they don't even get 50% of what the average child gets invested into them. Clothing, healthcare, schooling, whatever it is, they get less than 50% of what the average family is able to invest in their own children. Access to home computers is almost non-existent. The best average that I found was 21%. The average is 5% access to a home computer. Why is that important? It's important for schooling. We know that right now with all that's going on. When we shift to NTI, those children, more than probably 80% of them have no access to a home computer to even attend schooling. But just as critical, computers are the future for a generation below me, certainly. And so learning and knowing to use a computer, and we just talked to Nick earlier about how we need someone pressing our fingers on the keyboards because we're not that savvy, but children are. When I have questions, I often ask my grandchildren, how do I do this? So children are. Children in foster care have little access to home computers that really weakens their opportunities once they come out of foster care, if in fact that's their future. Having said that, 20,000 children every year age out of foster care. That means at age 18 to 21, depending what state they're in, they will graduate out, if you will. And graduation means they're gone. It doesn't mean that they're given a chance. It means because they're so old and nobody adopted them, they're released into the world to fend for themselves. Results, within 4 years, 50% of those children who age out have no earnings at all. And the average annual income of a child who ages out of foster care is $7,500. I don't know why I'm smiling. I think I'm just a smiley preacher because it's not, that should not inspire a smile there. It's probably a sad smile when I think of those facts. So today's theme for our message is, to whom do I belong? The story of foster care, the story of Aubrey working in foster care, the story of Aubrey as a therapist in foster care to the exhaustion factor is just to introduce our subject today. To whom do I belong? That's a question that each of you are to ask. 1 John 3:1 says this, and I read this so differently than I've ever read it before. And it goes like this. Behold, look, see, behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons and daughters of God. I want you to understand that. Maybe, not maybe, the reason I introduced it this way is so you understand it in giving you a visual context, something that you can grasp, that these children who are without. Remember listening to a comedian, Tiffany Haddish, speak of her piece of luggage. The only thing that she could call her own, that gave her security and yet insecurity, a reminder of insecurity, was her piece of luggage. Why? Because that luggage stored all her possessions. And when this family that she was living with rejected her and no longer wanted her in their home, and she had to leave, she picked that luggage up and she walked to the next home. The life of a foster child is going from home to home to home, searching for someone who might claim them as their own. Behold, what manner of love that the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Adopted into his family. Jesus Christ, when he appeared in the Americas, and I believe when he appeared everywhere he went, he spoke of his people. When Jesus Christ walked the streets of Jerusalem, he spoke of his people. He was speaking of Israel. How does that feel to be named Yepgoth? When he calls his own Israel. How does that feel to be named and then fill in your own name there? Here's how it feels. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Maybe not like the natural children in that household, but adopted in as the sons and daughters of God, as his own. Jesus Christ said, I came from my own and they rejected me. You are they who didn't reject him. You are they who he adopted in, and you love your Father. As the song said, he's a good, good Father, and I am loved by him. The challenge, I believe, I don't know this, the challenge I believe with a child after transferring from home to home to home with their piece of luggage is, have I landed in a place where they're going to love me? Have I landed in a place where I'll be taken in as their own? Is this just a tryout? Is this an audition? And if I fail, I'm rejected. We had none of that. We were adopted in and kept in. I don't know that this is how it happened, but I'm certain of this, that the first thing the Father said is, throw that luggage out. You're home. You don't need to transfer anymore. You're not going anyplace else. You're in my house, and I've adopted you in as my own. What manner of love is this? To be accepted so fully. Based upon what? Would love to see what my luggage looked like at age 18. What was it filled with? Failure, sin. I'm not going to go through the list. You have your own luggage that you can reflect upon. So as new members of that family, with this new Father, I wonder what it must feel like for the Father when we take on his characteristics. As a father to natural children, I would be foolish to attempt to tell you that I'm not proud when I see me in them. I also will tell you, sometimes I cringe and think, oh no, not that one. Repeat something else I did. Don't repeat that behavior. But it's such a fulfilling moment when they take on some of the behaviors that they've seen, especially if they're good, actually only if they're good, that I may have in some way modeled for them, and certainly for Candace as well. But I'm trying to keep it to the gender of the male in the sense that, so how must it feel for God? 1 John 4:8 says this, he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. When we dole out our love selectively, I like that person. I like those people. I like people who say things like this. I like, and then fill in your own blank. I don't like these people or this person. And I don't give them all of my love. If he's proud when I love, what then does he think when I don't? Why? For God is love. Today Unfortunately, I'm looking at myself when I look down at this computer and I see the tie I wore purposely. This is a tie that my children drew. I don't know how many years, I'm going to guess 28 years ago. Candace will tell you that it's not just this tie, but most of the clothes in my closet are about 28 years old. So this is not a surprise to her, but I wore this to remind myself of what it feels like to be a father. Romans 8:15 says this, "For you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear." Once you've come into my house, says God, there's no reason to feel and reenact and continue to experience almost phantom pains of bondage that you were in. Your bondage may have been alcoholism. Your bondage may have been anger. Your bondage may have been hate. Your bondage may have been just sin. You no longer have to experience that bondage any longer. You're in my house, says God. You're safe. My walls will protect you. Romans 8:15 again, reading the whole thing. "For you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you've received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father." What manner of love? Galatians 4 says this, a couple verses, 4 and 5. "God sent his son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons." It's who we are. As that song said, it's who we are. We're sons of God, adopted in. I have a negative connotation to adoption, not to the process, to the stories I've heard too often of what it feels like to be adopted next to the natural child. But with God, there's no variance. He loves us equally. He has taken us in as his own, adopted as his own. Ephesians, the first chapter, a couple verses 4 through 6 says this, "According as he has chosen us in him." Hear that again. He has chosen you. Nick, I don't know your story. Sister Patty, I don't know your story. Candace, I don't even know your story for that matter. What it felt like, rejection you've experienced, by whom, I don't know any of that. All of us limping forward, still limping at 63 years old, limping forward. And yet, as he walked in and saw us, he chose us in our conditions. For some, certainly it's my testimony, in the worst condition I could be in. I was at my worst when he loved me most. July 27, 1976. What did I bring to him in that moment? But failure and broken. "According as he has chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame." And why shouldn't he expect that? We're inside his walls, safe and protected by the old, by the bondage that we once lived under. Now we can depend on him, on his safety. So he expects holy and without blame, before him in love, before him in love. And there it comes again. "Having predestinated us into the," and that means mankind, not individually. That means we are predestined, given the opportunity to, predestined us into the adoption of children by Jesus Christ to himself. As another verse says, joint heirs. So imagine that you live in a household where your parents are going to leave behind some inheritance, and you bring in others to share in that inheritance. That's the love Jesus Christ has for you. Joint heirs, meaning equal heirs to Jesus Christ, to the rewards, which are eternal life. according to the good pleasure of God's will, to the praise of the glory of God's grace, wherein he hath made us accepted in the beloved. We are they who have been adopted by God. We are they who have been taught love firsthand. We are they who now have opportunity. I won't say responsibility, but it is. But I'll say it this way to invite you rather than demand anything of you. We are they who have been given opportunity to experience God's love firsthand and then take that outside to those who don't know that love yet. Take that to others to express all that God has expressed to us, all that God has modeled for us. Now it's our turn to love, that we might draw others to the inheritance that God has left for us, that God has given to us, that God has granted us, that God has gifted us. I do this, and maybe you do too. I struggle with worthiness constantly, continuously. I struggle because what have I returned to God for all that he's given to me? I don't struggle with worthiness to earn my way anywhere. I long gave that up when I came to a better understanding that everything is a gift from God. I struggle with worthiness because how can I ever repay him for all that he's done for me? How can I fulfill the calling that each of us have? Love God, love others. And when I don't love them, I don't give them the same opportunity that God has given me. And so my calling to love, to, as I say, do the two, is real and significant. It's not tired to keep saying that phrase. What I mean by that is you can't exhaust perpetuating that statement. Love God, love others. It's the strongest tool we have. Our love for God says, I see what you've done for me. Think of who we might be. Forgive the analogy to take it to animals, but I've also been in places where animals are cared for, and you go in and you adopt an animal. And we look for the cutest animals. We look for the nicest, the most pleasant. So that we're going to bring them into our home. We want the best. I was not the best. He didn't come in and see me among others and say, I picked this one because he's so good. I wonder if he didn't say, I picked this one because he's not. And he needs me most. We're not handpicked for any other reason than this. God is love. Mankind has opportunity to find salvation for their souls. Mankind, all mankind. So who am I to decide who I should dole out my love to? Who am I to decide who deserves and doesn't deserve the love that God gave to me? So I say to all of you, make your Father proud. Love purely, innocently, like a little child, with fullness, because that's what he modeled for each of us. To whom do I belong? I don't know what you carry forward. I don't know the things that that trouble you, that you struggle with, or maybe have in your past. Hopefully have in your past. But I know we carry much forward. And those can be replaced when we focus on the pureness of the love that God has given us. I want to say I'm sorry for any pain that you carry forward. I'm sorry if you grew up in a house where you didn't feel sufficient love. I'm sorry if your experience wasn't ideal. But I know this, that love heals, love overcomes, love brings victory to a life that nothing else can. Love is rich and robust and thorough. It finds every pain, every ache, wherever you've hidden it, goes in and it washes it. And if you'll allow God's love to start you anew, it'll happen for you. So today, the answer is simple. To whom do I belong? And each of you would answer the same way. I belong to God. I belong to Jesus Christ. I belong inside the safety of the walls that He's presented to us, His household. May the Lord bless you with an understanding that you belong. May the Lord bless you with an understanding that you're loved. May you understand this, that when He says, my own, you now have a place in that statement. May the Lord bless each one of you.